Here's a red Clouser Minnow. Start with this nice big hook. Now if you're going to do a bunch of these, you can take the barbell eyes and kind of production them a little bit and paint them. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm going to show you how to just do a kind of a one-off here. So I'm going to start, put a base of thread here, and that's just to wrap that barbell eye on. So we're going to take this, and if you just hold it parallel to the hook for a second, wrap a couple of threads, and then you can start to loosely turn it. Now notice how far back from the front I'm leaving some space there. Now we're going to start doing some figure eights on this, a couple this way, a couple that way, just to lock it in place perpendicular, because we started parallel. Just a bunch of wraps to get that in place. Now if you wanted to, you could take some super glue right here and kind of lock that in place. I've got this UV epoxy, so just a quick drop of that will help. Get some underneath here too. That'll hopefully help it from spinning on the hook for you. Hit it with the flashlight, a couple of seconds of that. Just a strong way to help it avoid rolling on the hook for you. Now the next material we're going to add, there's not a lot to this. It's this white bucktail. So we just cut a clump off of this section here. About that much. Go back to the original real quick. You can see there's not a ton of it. In fact, I probably got a little bit more than that example has. So we'll just peel off a little less of that. Cut that section off there. Line it up like this. Now I'm going to cut the front there a little bit at an angle, just so when it ties down we can build a good head. We're going to wrap that down to the hook here. Now we're going to go behind the eyes. A couple of wraps there. I'm going to come back to the front, kind of control those pieces. These ones kind of came loose. Just going to try to pull those forward a little bit, because we're kind of going sparse in the back. Just wanted to capture those again, save them. Okay, and next up is the red bucktail. So again, we're just going to take a little section of that off of here. If you got a vise that rotates, good time to rotate that here. We're going to tie that on the underside of the hook. Next up is a little bit of this flash. So just take a couple of strands of that. Like that. Oh, that extra one stuck there. Line that up. Got a long one, so I'm going to pull that long one out and just match it up with the other ones. So you're about the same length as that red there. Couple of wraps here to put it on the hook, and then we'll come back in and clean up those ends. I've heard these flies, this Clouser Minnow, has caught all kinds of species of fish. And now we're just going to kind of wrap around that to cover up the red and to build up a head on that. Kind of taper it a little bit to the eye of the hook. You can see the red on this side, so just a few more wraps to cover that up a little bit more. Just broke the thread. We're not going to let that get to us. I'm going to just re-thread this real quick. I use these little, sometimes I use these dental floss threaders. Some of my bobbins, they don't go into easily. I think they're the ones with the beads on the front. This gets kind of stuck on the bead sometimes. So these are nice inexpensive threaders. So I'll put that in. That got through. Then just take this thread again, run it through the dental threader, then pull it through. Now you've got your thread again. And then we're just going to come in and capture that thread that we were tying with a minute ago. Lock that in place. We can cut off the old one. Where'd it go? There it is. Cut off the old one. Cut off the new tag end. And we're back in business. Now the last thing we were about to do before it snapped was put a whip finish on there, because that fly is done with the exception of the eyes. So we're going to do a nice big whip finish here. Now we got a lot of exposed thread. That thread just snapped again, but did not go back into the bobbin, so we don't have to re-thread it. That's 2 thread failures right here. We're just going to recover again. Cut off those tag ends. And go back to the whip finish. What was supposed to be a pretty quick fly is turned into a little bit more than that. Now we're going to cut that off. Now, if we want to, because we've seen the thread is kind of broken a few times, we can come back in with a little bit of this UV epoxy. I got this from Wild Water. And we'll just use that to kind of reinforce the head on there. Because you can imagine if a fish hits that, you get a lot of exposed thread. They can easily get through that real quick and then tear apart your fly. So we'll use that UV resin just to kind of harden that up. And the final thing we're going to do is paint these eyes. You could leave them gold. Who knows if the fish care? Never had one complain to me. I'm using just a simple paint from Walmart. Inexpensive. Just take a little dot of that red right there. Got some extra hair on there. And just paint that eye. Now obviously you can leave them gold, you can paint them red and leave them red. You can let that dry and come back and put a little dot of black on like this. Just depends on how much you want to do. I'm going to paint the top of that a little bit more. Got a little extra on that. And there it is, the red Clouser Minnow.